Okay, so you may remember that I mentioned that there's such a thing as a passive infinitive. So we're going to talk about that today. Instead of putting it out, like kind of spreading it out over the next semester, we're just going to do it right down in the notes all at once and then practice them as they come up. Okay, so what you will need is your verb flip chart and a writing utensil that has a fine tip because it's small writing is about to happen, and your a note card in the mood column that says infinitive. You should already have this note card, but if you don't, you need a note card in the mood column and the title will be infinitive. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so here I have a blank note card. If you have this note card in your mood column already, fantastic. The note card I need for my mood column is going to say infinitive on the tab. Okay, and then I'm going to flip it as if I were flipping it in my note in my flip chart, and I'm going to make a line here where I'll put kind of titles of the two columns. I will also put, I love that I managed to make a crooked line even with a ruler. That's okay. I'm going to make a line here for title columns, and then I'm going to dissect this, make 2 columns here, so 3 columns total. And then I also need 3 rows. So first row, second row, and then a third row. So this is essentially what you need it to look like. Just make sure the top row is narrow. You don't need that to be big. It is irritating that they're crooked, I'm sorry. Okay, so here I'm gonna write active, passive. On the side, I'm gonna write present, perfect, and future. Okay, so this is what it's gonna look like. Now, you guys know how to do present infinitives. So I'm gonna recommend that you do the spacing exactly as I'm doing it, okay? So, second principal part. Second principal part equals to blank, okay? So for example, for the verb to love, the second principal part is amare with an R-E, and we translate that to love. Okay? Passive. How do you form the passive infinitive? Second, oh gosh, wrong color. Second principal part, cut off the E, add I. Cut off the E and add an I. Third conjugation has an exception to this, and we'll talk about that later. So, and it's translated to be blanked. So in Latin, if we cut off the E, we get amar, and add I, it's amari, and then we would translate it to be loved. You notice even with a micro tip marker, I am writing real small and real tight, okay? Perfect tense. So if you think of this like this is a synopsis chart, right? The top half of the synopsis uses the infinitive. Same. If we go to what would be the third quadrant, we're going to use the third principal part. Fourth quadrant, fourth principal part. Okay, so for this quadrant right here, I'm using the third principal part. So, third principal part, add S-S-E. And it's going to be translated to have blanked. So, the third principal part of amare is amari. ma, we. Then I'm going to add S, S, E. Amawise would be translated to have loved. Okay? To have loved. Pause this if you need to, and then restart it so we can go to the fourth quadrant. So, fourth quadrant, what do? Fourth principal part. Fourth principal part, and then you have to change the US. More to come on that later, but for right now, just leave the US. And then add as a second word, essay. This is going to be translated to have been blanked. Whew. This is a lot of fine motor control, kids. So, for example, fourth principal part of amare is amatus. And as a second word, I'm going to add essay. And then the translation would be to have been loved. Holy moly. That is some real small writing, kids. If you need to come in and borrow a fine-tipped pen, let me know. Now, if I had done this appropriately, I would have made these columns much smaller. But anyway, we are not in pencil. I'm going to put an X through this, okay? Because future passive infinitive is not something that's going to come up much, so I don't need your brains to be clogged with that information. The future infinitive is going to be the future participle plus essay as a second word. And you're going to translate it to be about to blank. So, for example, amaturus, the UR makes it a future participle. Second word, essay. And then I'm going to translate this to be about to love. And that is how you form and how you translate the future active infinitive. Okay? Just take my word for this. This becomes extremely important, so please make sure you have the notes so that we have these tools to work with in class. Thanks, kids.